Well, hello again. Hi, thank you so much for joining us. This is our last session here at the House of Helvetia, and we are so sad to be saying goodbye to this incredible space, this incredible auditorium, and of course to all the amazing fans who have stopped by. We don't have any adult artists, so that means we have extra strong opinions today, okay? And we want to hear from all of you, so do raise your hand. We will be calling on the audience to share their opinions, and we hope you will. Now, first of all, a vibe check. Who's from Germany? Woo! Austria? Norway? Finland? Switzerland? Yeah. United Kingdom? Get it, girl. And France? All right, we're a mixed group. We are a mixed group is the point. I want to introduce our panel. On the far left, he needs no introduction. It is Devin at ReviewMovieBlogs.com. Next to him is the gorgeous Simon Falk from Copenhagen. And just here is my sister, Suzanne. Otherwise known as Emmy's biggest fan and supporter. Sorry it didn't work out, girl. All right. So, just as a starting point, I want to go around and ask you, who is winning the Eurovision Song Contest 2025 based on what you've seen? We've been to rehearsals, we've seen the photos, we've seen the run-throughs. Let's start with Deppin.
I think Sweden might just win it. I really... obviously that didn't get me on fire. Yeah, but I think Sweden really does have that mainstream cut through. So no one's actively going to dislike it, and those who have, it's because they don't want Sweden to host, which is not a compelling reason not to vote for a song. And yeah, I think it has the strongest, well actually it has the broadest appeal. There's no strong dislike, and people like it enough, and people remember it as well. Like, yeah, so I think Sweden will win it.
I'm the boring one, and I am also saying Sweden for kind of the same reasons that Devin has just mentioned. And because we can see in every poll, in the audience polls, and everything that comes out, Sweden is just on top every single time.
Well, the odds certainly think that Sweden is going to win. I am going to say Finland, because I need to mix it up, and I would love to see Erika win.
They do. Does anyone else want to see Erika win? Yeah. And who is Team Kai Sweden? Own that choice. Curiously, last year, the day of the grand final, Switzerland was third favorite to win, and they won. I forget who was 1 and 2 last year. Do you remember?
Croatia was first, and help me out here. Israel, I think, crawled up to second before the final. So Croatia, Israel, and Switzerland.
And this year, France is currently third in the odds to win. Now, last night at the jury show, France was incredible. France was amazing, and I do believe that France won the jury show. There was just an energy to it. There was a feeling. Everyone had it. Last night in our review video, I think most of us said France won the jury vote. Of course, that does not mean they will win overall, because this is going to come down to that split. Usually the jurors, or at least for the past 2 years, all of the juries have got behind one song. Last year, Switzerland. So there was a huge margin going into the public vote. This year, though, there are a few good jury choices, you know, Switzerland, France, Italy. And so I don't think the jury lead will be as big. And that means the televote could decide the winner. And I think that's what you guys are picking up on, the massive televote that Sweden seems likely to get. I think France won the jury show. Who will win overall? My head says Sweden, but my heart says Finland or France.
Me too.
Thank you so much for your support. Thank you so much. Let's turn it over to the audience. Raise your hands if you would like to share your winner. It does not have to match what we said. Erdi will come to you with the mic.
Now, hold on, William. Are they sharing who they think is actually going to win, or who has their hearts?
They can say both. This is an open forum. Gentlemen by the curtain.
Yeah, I think I agree with the to that Sweden will win. I think people might be underestimating the jury vote, like people underestimated Kai during Melody Festival.
Yes, you raise a good point. At Melody Festivalen, Kai only lost the jury vote by 1 point, so they almost won. Other hands. Y'all got to thank you.
I mean, I think I'm in agreement with the Wee team here. I think my personal favourite after seeing all the live shows in the arena is France. And I'd say my second personal favourite is Albania. But I do think it looks like Sweden is probably the favourite to win when it comes down to the difference between the jury and the televote. But I do agree with you guys thinking that France has probably won the jury vote. But I think because, as you said, there's a lot of jury favourites, it will be a bit more split. And I think with Sweden probably being the clearer televote winner, it will probably have enough of a lead just to get over France.
Thank you for sharing that. Now, you brought up Albania. So why don't we actually talk about this? Albania's best result at Eurovision ever is 5th place, I believe, with Rona Nishalu 2012. That was a very serious jazz experimental song. You know, it's a very different genre. This is world music. This is folk. This is electronic. It is so unique. Devin at ArenaWeeblyBlogs.com. How high can Albania climb?
As high as matching that ranking. I don't think it's going to beat it. I just think there's so many voices in the room, and Albania is one of them, and it's great and it's deserving. But you know, I can already think Austria is also in the mix. I can already imagine a surprise result for Israel. I can imagine, and when you put all that, even Malta is inching forward. So you've got Finland, you've got Sweden, you've got France. I mean, that's already like 7, right? And we're talking top 5. So I think Albania will get a very good result. I think they'll be very happy. When I met them, they said to me that they were just like all about Festival Elektronike. It's like, this is such an afterthought. A good one, but they just never imagined the Euro, you know, they weren't quite prepared for it. So a top 10 finish would also be amazing. A top 5 would blow it out of the water, but I don't think it'll better 5th position.
It's okay. Two big things are going Albania's way this year. One, there are no Balkans in this, apart from Albania, there are no Balkans in this final. So who will, Serbia, Montenegro, all of those countries, Georgia, Armenia, all of those countries, who will their jurors vote for? This is the only ethnic sound we really have in this final. And as you say, they have become this like fan favorite. And not to mention, Christer Bergman, the show producer himself, has said he wanted to put Albania last in the running order to end the show with real music. I mean, so there is a buzz around all of this. And I think both with the jurors and the televote, Albania will pick up really, really many votes. Is it enough to crawl into top 10, top 5? It might be. I have them as 7th in my own ranking. I think that's 7 or 8. I think that's where they will end.
Well, Albania is my personal #1 this year. I think that coming into Eurovision, I had them at 17, but now they are #1. And one of my brothers here mentioned that there are...
How many brothers do you have? I thought I was the only one here. Is Bobby Lee out back?
He's my biological brother. These are my brothers at heart because we are family. But one of these guys mentioned many voices. And I would just like to say that Beatrice, she is speaking for herself. She is speaking for the woman who is buried alive in the wall. She is speaking for the women of Albania. She is speaking for womankind. She is strong, and I would love to see Albania win. I think top 5. I'd love to see top 3.
That is so passionate. You are taking up space. Thank you, Katy Perry. Thank you so much.
I'm an astronaut now.
Just to clarify on the woman buried in the walls, because without context it sounds a little creepy. Beatrice, the lead singer, has said how the legend of Rozafa is very famous in Albania. In this legend, a castle is falling. A woman decides, I will allow you to bury me in the wall as long as you leave a hole for my right breast so I can feed my child. And then the castle stood, and the child lived. And so on stage, her dress has red sequins around the breast, and there's a sapphire on the nipple. This is expensive jewelry, y'all. This is honoring a woman's sacrifice, so thank you so much. All right, we need to move on. Finland was mentioned during this discussion. I want to see a show of hands. Who thinks Finland can win? Can win, realistically? Okay, that's almost a majority of the audience with some wobbles. Devin, let's start with you.
Yeah, I mean, it can. I mean, Eurovision for many years has become quite predictable, and I really like it when things get mixed up. I didn't think the code would bring us here. I genuinely didn't. You know, I thought it was baby lasagna and it was Louane also. Yeah, so I was thinking. And yeah, you know, the code won. And I think this year is also really exciting because it's a guessing game. You really don't know, you know, who's likely to win it. Erika Vikman is really strong, and I think Finland can take it. And when you look at the cuts from the clip, it looks like a winner's performance. I think it's really great, and it's great having many. Many favourites and many choices, and Finland is amongst them, most definitely.
2023, Kärja closed the semi-final. 2025, Erika Vikman closing the semi-final. Kärja struggled with his vocals as we went on through the week. I mean, he overused himself so much. He was at our Wee Jam, you remember, in Liverpool. He made so much to please the fans and go out there. Erika Vikman has been so focused. I mean, you interviewed her, and it's like she has made a plan. She wants to win this. She's in it for the win. There's nothing else that is good enough for her. And she has the vocals. She has the stage presence. Every time I see that performance, whether it's in the arena or on a screen, I mean, her, look into the camera and like her presence and everything just screams, look, babies, you're gonna vote for me, otherwise I'm gonna come to you and pick up your phones and vote for you. So yeah, is it realistic? That's the whole thing. I think some jurors will be put off by the raunchiness of it, but let me say this, is not as raunchy as it could be with that title and with that, theme in the song. So she's actually very clever. The performance focuses on her and her alone. The camera work is sublime. I mean, even at those 30 seconds when she has been on the front stage, turns around, walks towards that giant golden microphone, enters that, and it just elevates with her on top. I mean, the crowd goes wild in the arena. I've seen it now 3 times. It's crazy. It's not so party, but yeah. Finland is definitely in for a big televote score. Is it enough with the juries? I don't think so, but top 3 overall, I think is realistic.
Well, it's not as raunchy as it initially was. It's been toned down a bit, though she is still incredibly sexy. Sticking along the theme of empowerment, regardless of how one identifies, I think she is singing your anthem. She is for all of the people, and it is hard to not get behind that, to not get behind her beauty and her passion, as she looks for empowerment for everyone. And I tend to always go for the underdog because my heart just pulls me there. I don't like that the president of Finland is not behind her. I don't like that he is seemingly marginalizing women, marginalizing people who have beliefs that may not be his. So those are my thoughts on that.
Thank you so much, Mother of Dragons. On the Wooby Blogs YouTube channel right now, I've just received a message. We are uploading an interview. This morning I was physically in bed with Kärja. That's literal. We were doing the interview in a bed. And we discussed Erika Vikman. And I had asked him, did you give her advice? Was she asking for your help? And he said, no, Erika Vikman doesn't need advice. This is her show. She's in control. He said that when he came to Eurovision, he was soliciting advice, but she is so seasoned. She's been on so many stages in Finland. She does not need his help. The word is presence. When she hits that stage, you're staring at her. There's this confidence. Other acts, we've said this before, have flashing everything, 22 dancers, lots of steam and smoke. Erika has her face. She has her face and a microphone, and that is all she needs. And because there's not the distraction of all the other stuff, you feel like you have a connection with her. There are a lot of close-up shots of her face. And so you build a connection in 3 minutes. You go on a physical journey from one side of the stage to the other and back. It's very smart. It's like, come with me, wir kommen, and then you go, and then you go back. And then everyone's celebrating her. They cut to the audience for like 15 seconds, cheering, cheering, cheering. And when you look back, you're like, where's Erika? Where's Erika? And she's rising, darling, rising like a phoenix on the microphone. That is a winning shot. That belongs in the recap. And that could secure her the title of Eurovision winner 2025. Is it realistic though? This is a head-heart thing for me. My head is like, the numbers will fall for Sweden based on a massive televote, but I think we're underestimating, and I'm echoing someone in the audience, we're underestimating the fact that juries could get behind this as well. Because she is giving Freddie Mercury Arena Tour. You know, there are girls in this competition, and then there are women, and she is a woman. And I think jurors will respect that. All right, let's open this up to the floor. Thoughts on anything, specifically Finland, Albania? Our friend from Berlin.
You know what I liked? I mean, she won my heart when she was eating fondue with Hazel. And she was sitting like this with her open legs, and then she had like this bread of cheese in her mouth, and she got me.
She goes for it.
She got me.
I mean, Hazel, just for a brief moment, she is the funniest host I've seen in years in Eurovision. I mean, we have Petra Mede, who is there. But Hazel's wit and her interactions with the artists and stuff, it's gold. It's comedy gold and it's TV gold. I love it.
Gentlemen on the front line.
I'm going to steal his question, actually. So I was wondering what you think of this song from Erika Vikman, the Ikoma, versus Cicciolina a couple of years ago.
I'm so happy that she did not win with Cicciolina. I loved that song. I was on the jury that year. I gave it 12 points for the UK. Obsessed with it. But this is a better product overall. When you have staging, meaning, singer, her voice, she's singing in the German words, she'll pick up some points for them. I feel like Cicciolina was on the other side of raunchy, and I like that. But I feel like this is more palatable to a bigger audience. What about you? Cicciolina v. Ishkoma?
Yeah, I like both. And, we only saw Cicciolina at UMK. It could have had a whole different interpretation on stage, as Ikome did as well. I like the fact that the sort of her as product placement, she's metamorphosizing, isn't she? So I feel like there's an evolution with her every time. I think it's really lazy when people just are so faithful to what we know of them that when we see their staging, it's basically like a music video done for stage. But this is like a complete redraft, but keeping all the key elements. And I think Cicciolina would have done that. It's a really compelling story of a porn star that became a politician. And when we asked her about it during an interview, and she was like, "Yeah, I'm all of these things," and there's an excitement there. Of the two songs, I'd probably listen to Cicciolina more than Ikome. I think I would watch Ikome, right? So I think you playlist, but I think it's good that she's got this breadth of work and other songs of hers, in a much, as part of the Erika Vikman playlist. It's good. But had she gone with Cicciolina, we wouldn't have had Ikome, right? So sometimes that's a blessing.
Yeah, I mean, I'm echoing both of you. I think Ishkoma is a better product overall, and I think Erika is now 5 years more experienced, which also benefits her. I think that Cicciolina in the 2020 edition, who knows what would have happened if we had had the 2020 edition, but I don't think she would have been up there. Now she's in contention, and she wouldn't have been that with Cicciolina, because we had so many songs in 2020 playing to the audience. We had Iceland, we had Russia, we had Italy. There were so many songs catering more for the audience. I don't think Cicciolina would have had that broad appeal that Ich Komme now has. So thank God, actually, that Erika Vikman is now 5 years older and come here with a better song.
I only follow the national finals when he calls me and tells me that I have to. So I can't actually respond to this question.
Thank you for your honesty. We did an interview with Erika a week ago, and we asked her this question, are you ever happy you lost the competition in 2020? And she said yes. Echoing what Simon said, she said she's older, she's wiser. She said back then she would have been overwhelmed by everything, but now, because she's become an even bigger star at home, she's used to the attention, she's used to crowds, she knows how to handle herself, and she knows how to respect herself and to do what she wants, not to listen to other people. Any other questions or comments? Front row, glasses, in the black.
I'm interested, why not Greece?
Greece is beautiful. Greece is beautiful.
I understand when you're talking about France and the impact and all that stuff, but I also think Greece has the potential as well. It is passionate. There is, with France there is that story behind it as well, but also with Greece there is quite a story behind it. And I'm Greek by birth, even though I live in Australia, so I get that, the whole story of the song. But I also think that it will appeal to the Balkan countries. And the interesting thing is, like, we went to the second semi-final on the off chance. And I thought, I'm going to have a look at the number of YouTube hits the following morning. And I was really surprised because Claudia was way up there, and like some of the others, like Finland, I looked at Finland, I looked at Malta, because like the people that were in the audience around me like went wild, for them. But they didn't have the amount of hits that Claudia did, and I sort of thought, that's really, really surprising for me. Your thoughts?
So just to clarify, for anyone who doesn't know the song, essentially she speaks of migration, of people lost and found. There's an immigration narrative, she's from a family of immigrants. She sings on a rock, and this rock represents lands lost, lands found, destinations in the future, people buffeted about by the sea, the storms. It's a beautiful set piece, absolutely stunning. And the vocal is on point. The vocal is absolutely on point. However, I feel that perhaps in the forum of Eurovision, it's very poppy this year, like we're talking about Ich Komme, we're talking about Barabana Bastu, and this is like an art piece for me. It's like, it's gorgeous, but I just don't think someone drunk at a party in London on a Saturday night might respond to that as easily, because I need to be in a mood. I love it, I love watching it, but it sort of requires concentration, you've got to pick up on the details. Whereas something like Barabana Bastu hits you like a wall, and so there's that immediacy. In terms of views, I would say, we see this frequently with Greece, Spain, Italy and Poland, that views are always huge, like absolutely huge, because Greek people get behind their artists, And I just wish we knew where the views came from, because then you could do more of an analysis. But no, everything you said remains true. It's a fantastic, fantastic performance. Devin, what do you think? Can Greece contend?
Actually, Greece was my highest score coming into the competition. So we run on Wee Wee Blog something called the Wee Wee Jury, and we all sort of analyse and give scores and break down and give reviews. My phone was here with me. I would read out what I wrote about Greece. So it was clearly my favourite. But I also feel like somehow we get it, we know a lot about these songs, but one thing collectively we don't do as well is predictions. Because, it's, music is subjective and I feel that Greece hasn't given me that visual climax, which is important. So I love, when you love the song and you want to hear more of it, but when you watch it, it's like, okay. And that's what Greece is doing for me. Interestingly, at the semi-final, she was the last act to be called out. I was sharing the space with William, and at one point, William was like, it's got to be Greece, but then, you know, there's this delayed, prolonged call out, and it's like, could it be Serbia?
Australia was there.
Korea.
You know, and when that happens, then you know, because had it been another, this triplicate call out, you were dead certain about certain countries. I mean, some three would pop up, and I would be like, none of these three. I mean, are you really going to pick one from this group of three? And you know, and others you'd get like, this is the country that's going forward. With Greece, I didn't have that certainty anymore, and I think that, it's probably had its climax. It'll do well. I just don't think it's it's a contender for victory.
Can I ask another question? What do you think of the new format that they've got announcing the participants that go through?
Let's have Simon comment on Greece and Suzanne, then we'll come to that question next.
Greece is for me visually stunning, but the problem is it's visually stunning in the arena. You see the grandness of that huge LED in the background and the floor, and it's like, it's so compelling, but I haven't seen that compellingness on screen yet. So I think they've missed out of doing more wider shots to really take in the grandness of those visuals. Claudia's vocals are probably top 2 female vocals this year. I'm from Denmark, so my queen, Cesar, we love her. But I actually agree with Devin. I agree that she can pick up some Balkan votes, but Albania is such a huge fan favorite, not only in the Balkans, but among all fans. So I think Greece will do well in the jury vote. I mean, Marina Sati came 9th. She was like winner potential-ish last year. So Claudia, I don't see her up there, but who knows? She can do it Portugal and sneak into a top 10 with a huge jury vote. That's where I am right now.
Claudia's vocals are excellent. She's precious. It was really fun watching her interview here, where she talks about the area in Greece where her family is from, in Greece where her family is from, and she talks about the temper that women in that particular area have. And I feel like the climax during her performance is indicative of that temper she references, where the screen goes red and yellow and you have Claudia and someone else walking towards one another. I just don't think there is enough there to really take it away. I had her at 18 coming into Eurovision, and last night when I redid my ranking, she ended up at 17. Not because I don't like it, just because there's so much else there.
What elevation, 18 to 17, go girl.
Elevated.
Now, I was speaking this morning to someone, an official from one of the broadcasters in the Balkans, and this person said that he thinks the Balkan votes will go to Greece and then to Albania, per our earlier discussion. Now, you had a second question about the split screen, where during the semifinals they had 3 acts up. I'm really curious to get all of your opinions. I'm going to start by sharing the opinions of the artists who were here. Tommy Cash was here. You can watch the interview on our YouTube channel. And he said, well, it's great for the audience, but for the artists, whoo! And I think it is good TV. All of us are talking about it. We're all like, whoa, none of them should go. Whoa, all of them should go. It creates the suspense and the drama. But I think for the artists, the EBU has made a big deal this year about protecting artist welfare. And I think, if you're a young artist, the start of your career, there's a camera filming what may be your most public failure. That's a lot. That's a lot. So I'm curious what you guys think. Devin?
Yeah, I have mixed emotions on it. It was funny how it was sold, though, because it was sold as something like, oh yeah, instead of knowing who's not gone through, it was like, well, the previous way of doing it, we didn't know until the very end anyway who you've left out. So I'm not quite sure what was achieved. But I think it's good to mix it up. I mean, the Eurovision, I think just switching things up is good, actually. I think, it keeps it fresh, it keeps it exciting. I was really excited by it, but I'm aware of how, it could be quite damaging to be, especially when you're put through the mill multiple times, as Tommy Cash from Estonia was. But then, if you're going to run a split screen, you will pop up more than once. I mean, it's, Yeah, I'm not quite sure. I'll come back to that.
I think they mentioned when they laid out when we got the press release about it. I think they said that an artist would only be a maximum of 3 times in a split screen, and I think Malta was 2 times before she was called out, and I can't, off the top of my head, remember if there has been. Tommy Cash was also on the 3rd time, but those are the 2 that spring into mind. I'm like, if someone had been on there 3 times and not being called, it's. Yeah, I agree with the scrutiny for the artist. It doesn't look good. But for a TV audience, I get that. And where does this idea come from? Like any other new invention in Eurovision, it comes from Melodifestivalen in Sweden, because they do it in Sweden. This was also new this year, that in Sweden they have one direct qualifier who wins a heat in Sweden. Then number 2, 3, and 4 is the split screen. So they will say, okay, someone is going to final qualification, and then you have the 2 split screen, one is going through, one is not. It's good TV, but it's like, okay, you've eliminated 2 there that won't come into play anymore, and then you have the 2 left, and it's like, okay, one of them is a favorite and one of them isn't. I don't know. I mean, for me personally, I went feral when Denmark went through. Because of that split screen, it was like Denmark, Latvia, Ireland. And we were like, we have a chance now. Because had it been Denmark, Austria, Malta, I would have said no way.
What are you saying about Ireland?
I am just saying we had a chance. I didn't say we were definitely going to beat Ireland. That's a whole other discussion. But I agree with what you say, Devin. It's for the artist's welfare. This is not good. I would rather have, like, if anything, all of them, in a checkerboard, all of them there, and then some arrow going around, spin the bottle, or I don't know, something.
Spin the bottle.
No, but I had too many group Zoom calls.
No, but something. It's like a three-way split screen, and being exposed maybe 3 times without going through. I'm not quite sure, but this is the first year. Let's see how the artists receive it, after Eurovision.
Well, the suspense definitely makes for good television. However, we all respond differently when we are under pressure. And for these artists, this is their career. And I'm not certain in the most stressful moments of my career that I would want to be captured on screen. When I look at Ukraine and Daniel, weren't they last to be called out in their semifinal? And I mean, he's fiercely staring into the camera, and it's like he's having a conversation with all of us. And in that poor kid's head, he's thinking, oh my God, Zifferblock cannot be the first in Ukraine to not qualify in how many years, right? Ever. And so back to their welfare, I'm not sure that it's good for them or their career.
He actually discussed this point here on this stage in our interview, which you can watch on the Louis Blog's YouTube channel. He said, I knew they were going to do this to us. I knew that Europe was expecting Ukraine to go through and that they would do this to me for the drama. And then his brother said, yeah, it was good TV. So, they get it. But I must say, we've had these embarrassing moments of stress previously already. 0 points when that's announced. I think that's even more harsh in the grand final. You've got the biggest audience, and you're told you have 0 points, and then people laugh, whistle. I mean, that's probably even more intense. But from the viewer perspective, I think it's better to show 3 artists up close than it is to have the host, the scoreboard, and then a tiny box. I don't want to see the host, frankly. For me, the hosts are sort of wallpaper. They're there, but they're not there. I like this system because you focus on the artist, and indeed the EBU said the point of this partly was to give the artist more of a platform. And of course, artists, they don't necessarily want that platform. But we move on.
Sorry, can I just chime in very quickly? One thing I really do like, though, is that we are a very supportive space as Eurovision fans. And elimination doesn't quite mean sort of like dead in our hearts. Some of my most celebrated figures in Eurovision are acts that didn't go through. Renata Tarifa, Lydia Isaac, the list goes on. And yesterday, or actually all week, seeing like Red Sebastian at the Euro Club and like packed out. Gojo last night, and not having to, also they perform differently because they're not fighting for a spot. People have just come out to see them, and I think that's just really, really heartwarming. So whatever the producers do, I think Eurovision is such a safe space, and we really support our own. And one thing I really like that the EBU have done this year is that it's less about the flag actually. It's very much about the artist. The artist's name is boldened, and it really gives them a springboard to kind of shoot from. Only one will win really, and how important is second, and how important is 19th or 22nd, it's who you like. And yeah, I like that.
While we're talking about heartwarming moments and not making the final, there were 3 artists who came here after they were eliminated: Red Sebastian, Clement, and Theo Evan, my doppelganger. And it was really heartwarming. When Red Sebastian was here, we shared the story that, to cut a long story short, the night of the semi-final, he was due to come here on this stage the very following morning. And so we sent an email. We were convinced he would cancel because it's so emotionally overwhelming to be a favorite and then not go through. And then the head of press for Belgium wrote back instantly, and this is 2 a.m., "Don't worry, we will be there." And then he came here with that voice. I was listening to the email. But it was amazing. There was so much love for him, and it was just so endearing. And yeah, you can watch that video on the Movie Blogs YouTube channel. All right, more questions from the audience.
So my head and similarly is thinking that Sweden is going to do quite well, but I feel like the one that people are sleeping on and I feel like hasn't gotten enough promotion, and who my heart is Italy, Lucio Corsi. And it's interesting because we talked about the views, and I think if you look at all of the national finals across the countries and like YouTube views, Sanremo dominates, with so many of those artists. And also if you look, since 2017, I think besides Ukraine, like Italy has been the most successful in terms of points. And I think too, watching the performance, and I'm curious what you all think after seeing it this week, the only one that had lyrics for, a foreign language, which is another way for the audience to connect with the song, with the lyrics, because it is such an emotional, powerful song. And there's little points too, having Andy written on the bottom of his shoe, which is a reference to Toy Story. There's a Blues Brothers reference when they're handing off the harmonica. So there's lots of little really interesting things about it, but it's also just simple staging and it's amazing vocal. So curious what you guys think about Italy.
That is such a good point. With the subtitles, I don't know if it's just my eyes or what, if there's a simple backdrop, simple staging, I feel like the subtitles enhance the performance. If it was busy, I would be too distracted, like what do I look at? But because they've kept it pure and simple, vintage radios behind them, 2 men, a piano, a guitar basically, you can take in the lyrics, you're drawn into the story, it sounds beautiful. Long story short, this is the dark horse of the year, right? We've talked about these horses, there's a whole stable of horses somewhere, and we keep saying these people could threaten for the win. But this is the one people have stopped talking about. Lucio did not do a press tour. Lucio decided to, focus on his art, to be away from the cameras, to do his thing, and I think that's paying off, because the jury will have loved this. He's vocally on point, there's a sweetness, a tenderness, it's so Italian. My goodness, Italy has this built-in advantage that they're Italian. The language is beautiful. When they came back in 2011 after being away for so long, they came second overall and stormed the jury vote. Like, it was a huge margin. We could see, yes, this could do very well. This could come top 5. I really do believe that. What about you?
And won the jury in 2015 as well.
Yeah, I mean, all these legacy points, personally, I'm not that moved by it. I'm just assessing this as a standalone entry, and it does very little for me. I love your dissertation. I would love to read it. But yeah, I just don't connect. I mean, first of all, he was a consolation prize, so we didn't really expect to see him at Eurovision. I'm glad he's here.
Could you explain that for the audience in case they
So he didn't win Sanremo, and Sanremo is the vehicle that brings you to Eurovision. But it's an interesting format because it's not a national selection, but kind of is. And the person that won turned it down, then he was next in line and then said yes. Yeah, it's a classic, but I also feel like Eurovision is not a level playing field, and I think a lot of what we've assigned to it is also because it's Italy. You know, had San Marino sent that, may actually struggle to advance from its semi. I don't know. I'm also very aware, because I get a lot of hate mail, that I need to be careful, like when somebody likes, as you do, sir.
He's ready.
Yeah, but you know, you really have to, you know, people like what they like, and sometimes, you know, that's not, it doesn't have the universal appeal that may not be something that I like, so I respect that, but yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, definitely.
I think Italy's biggest problem this year is that Eurovision has, in the last few years, tended to, with the public vote, not the jury vote, but with the public vote, tended to go for those more easy digestible songs. And as you say, getting hate mail, I haven't gotten hate mail, but some of the comments on our previous videos have been like, oh, why is Simon calling Belgium and Cyprus complicated? They're not complicated, blah, blah, blah. No, but when I say easy digestible, I say, if you have, just for the example of it, Estonia versus Italy. A casual viewer hasn't seen any of the performances, looks at Eurovision, looks at Estonia, oh, this is fun, the plane is moving, and then looking at Italy, why is he white in his face? Why does he make those expressions? You know, they can't comprehend that quickly. So I think the biggest problem is that the televote, if you think about it, Salvador Sobral, 2017, that's 8 years ago, he's the last one to do very, very well with the televote as these kind of more somber songs. You have 2018, it was Netta, 2019, Spirit in the Sky, 2021, Måneskin, 2022, Kalush Orchestra, that's a whole nother history, 2023, Carrier, 2024, Baby Lasagna. So it's these songs that are huge fan favorites. So that's Italy's biggest problem. I see them do well in the jury. I can see them, you know, picking up a lot of these, not 12 points, but I can see them picking up a lot of the, you know, 8 and 10 points. Because it's a good song, he's a good performer, and it's very, very well staged and very, very much in its own genre. But I don't see the public doing Italy as many favors as they have done in the previous years.
I always love the Italian entries. Who remembers who my favorite Italian entry was? William?
Måneskin.
Yes, okay. So I did not like the video going into this. I thought it was one of the yuckier videos. Like you've got this man chewing food with food hanging out of his mouth. And then you've got sort of this exorcism moment that happens outside of this young boy's bedroom. And I thought, gosh, my parents probably wanted, you know, to have an exorcism performed on multiple occasions. Why is this in this video? So I had Italy ranked at 25 coming into Eurovision because I really disliked the video, but I also liked the vocals. And I like graphic tees. If anybody knows where I can get that Tweety Bird graphic tee that Lucia was wearing on the turquoise carpet, it actually says, always wanted to be a tough guy or something. I would love to be able to purchase one. But I like the story that he's telling. There's something very sweet, something very humble and kind about him and the eye contact that he makes. So coming into Eurovision, he was 25. He is now number 6 for me. I like the staging. I think that the jury is going to go for the staging. And I really think it's just a beautiful song and story. And again, it kind of goes back to that whole underdog theme. And I always like the underdog.
Yeah, I think one thing you're getting at, which is really, really important, is the vulnerability of this artist. He has not done the press tour. He was not famous in Italy until Sanremo. He was very much an independent artist, playing small venues, and then suddenly he's thrust onto the biggest stage in Italy. He ends up going to Eurovision, now he's here. I spoke with him on the turquoise carpet, and I said, are you ready for this big stage? And he said, you know, I like the stage because reality disappears. He really speaks to his own lyrics. You know, it says something like, he said, the world wants you to be hard like a stone or soft like a butterfly. And he's like, I can't do this balancing. It is so difficult. The world is a sphere, and I feel like I'm uneasy, unstable. He's a thinker. He's a poet. He's so kind. And I think that vulnerability is what we're all reading. I think that's what we're feeling. I think maybe that's why so many people identify with him. The white face paint. He's removing himself, and then you can imbue your own emotions, your own face onto his thoughts, his feelings. I just think this is really lovely. Yeah. So, are there fans of Italy here? And I need noise. Thank you. Thank you so much. Yeah, this is a real, it tugs on heartstrings. We should point out, he performs after Finland, the high energy, high octane sexuality, and before Poland, dragons, aerobics, all of that. So in this sort of high octane sandwich, he's the sweet filling, he's the blueberry sauce, and it's very, very sweet. But we move on. Next question. Anything you want, any topic, thank you. Front row Australia sequence.
I just want to shine a light on some countries that, aren't big favourites or aren't potential dark horses. So, out of all the countries that qualified from the semi-final to the final, who was your biggest surprise or unexpected qualifier? And sorry, Simon, you can't say Denmark.
Who would like to start?
Portugal. Yeah, Portugal. I didn't see that coming. I mean, now that it's in, I think it's actually good, and it's created a much more wholesome pick and mix. There's like lots of songs that take every. But then a part of me just feels like, Belgium didn't go through, Cyprus didn't go through, Croatia didn't inch forward. So Belgium surprised me. Interestingly, in semi-final 2, even though I thought it was the much harder semi-final, I actually got 9 out of 10, record number. So it was Australia was the only one that I thought would go through that didn't go through. So yeah.
I'm not going to say it, but no. You could say it by numbers because Denmark was 14th in the odds, also during that semi-final. So in terms of bookmakers' surprises, that was the biggest one, apart from Portugal, who was like dead last in that semi-final, according to the bookmakers. But I'm going to go with Armenia. And it's because Armenia wasn't up there. It hadn't been pre-hyped, It rose like after the first rehearsals. It like came higher and higher. Serbia was always up there. It was like Luxembourg and Serbia were like 9 and 10 in the odds, and it didn't move. Those two didn't move from there. But suddenly Serbia started to drop, and Armenia started to crawl from like 15th, 14th position up to a qualifying position. So I think that's the biggest surprise for me. But I mean, if you got a performer that is a survivor and staying alive, then I guess you're in the Eurovision Grand Final.
I'm going to address Portugal also. I watched this, I didn't like it. I felt like I was watching a 70s or 80s television show. I think I ranked it at 26 coming into Eurovision. I now have it, I think, at 14. But there was something that evening watching the performance that was just very beautiful. It started with dawn, and then there was this sunrise, and there was this beautiful Arizona in America like sunset, and then we come into evening and to dusk. And I followed the lyrics, and it was like a day in somebody's life as you think about what the song is about and moving and transitioning, and it was just so relatable for so many folks here in this audience that going into the semifinal, I'm like, oh, they're out. I think I was the only one on our team who, during the semifinal, put them in.
No, you were not the only one. Bernardo Tavares Pereira.
Oh, that's right, Mr. Portugal himself. So outside of Mr. Portugal himself, I was the only one who thought they were going through, and I'm glad they did.
Yeah, in that semi-final, there were really only 2 slowish songs. It was Portugal and Slovenia, if I'm correct. And when you think about it, in terms of the vast audience, a slow song is likely to go through. You can't just have 9 bangers, can you? So maybe it was always going to be one of them. And I think Portugal, it came later. It really captures joy and nostalgia. They told us here on this very stage, they said our song is about dislocation. There are so many immigrants in Europe, we think people will get the feeling, even if they don't get the literal message. Yeah, it was hopeful. They said they wanted to recreate an independent concert, a NAPA concert, they said. And they did that. You know, this is perhaps the most technologically advanced stage we've had at Eurovision. And Portugal said, we don't need it. Just give us that Apple Mac screensaver in the background and we will slay. And they did.
Just one more point about Portugal. We are overlooking, or we have been overlooking, the rest of the world vote. I mean, there are Portuguese-speaking countries out there. There are so many Portuguese immigrants around the world, and they would have taken up this song. And I remember when they were here and being interviewed by you, they made this point about, you know, being in exile, kind of, and that feeling speaks to so many people. So those, you know, 3 things combined, I think, put Portugal through. I'm taken back to Black Mamba in 2021. No one counted on them. Suddenly, you know, it's a pure song, and those songs are tending to be overlooked sometimes, both by us who are nerdy and trying to analyze every single inch of Eurovision, but there is a public out there for it, and we need to remember that when we go into and say, oh, Portugal, no one. Oh yeah, Portugal will always have a following, and that, I think, was what brought them to the final this year.
Indeed, we should point out, because we follow these Euro nerd stat type things, and Brazil has a massive Eurovision community, actually. And shout out to Angola, while we are speaking of Portuguese, when you look at the geographic sort of data where views come from, you do see both of these countries represented, so that could factor in. And yeah, also Portugal just does it pure. Y'all do it pure.
Yeah,
well, predicting your national final has become a nightmare, because you just never know what's going to happen.
Absolutely.
Could we get a mic to our Portuguese fan? Let's get his take. Portuguese fan, we need to know what you think. Did you expect them to win at home? And what's the reaction been like since they advanced to the final?
Okay, so in Portugal, people get the message from NAPA because it's a special message about immigration, people that go abroad to study. And we have a lot of songs that probably will be more competitive in Eurovision, such as Josh or Erika. And we were expecting one of these to win the national selection. But, you know, I think there are a lot of people that are upset and didn't get they didn't think that Portugal will advance, and they were, wow, they advanced. So let me shut up, you know. But I'm so happy about Portugal going through, and I hope some, you know, top 15, because about of the televote. There are a lot of Portuguese around the world. We got a vote from, I suspect, because I think Switzerland performed on semi-1, Switzerland, Spain, yeah. And so there are a lot of support. And I think people will get behind this.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Someone brought up Australia, and I want to talk about that briefly. I'm just going to throw this out there. I wonder, there were 2 things that stood out to me. One, in that semi-final, we had overt sensuality from Malta and Finland. And of course, Gojo had 2 costume reveals. The last one, he ended up shirtless, and the second one, he was bulging, right? There was a very deliberate sort of, I'm going to wear a skin-tight bodysuit, so he was working with his ample assets, we'll say. Do you think that worked against him? Do you think that perhaps when a man demonstrates this type of sensuality, it reads as aggressive, whereas when the women do it, we celebrate it? I'm just curious for your thoughts.
I think that, taking us back to Ole Alexander last year, when men go too much into it, Adonis didn't qualify. That also has a very queer message. He's also not naked, but like revealing skin on stage. I think it just turns off some people. It turns off the more conservative viewers. I mean, they're not conservative if they're watching Eurovision, but they live in conservative countries, and there is a conservative wave in especially eastern parts of Europe. And I think that might have taken people off on that. while we had, as you say, we have Erika, Vikman, we have Miriana, let me bring up again Sissel, because let's face it, a lot of people in those countries, they like women showing off, you know, their bodies and blonde hair and all of that. It's a cliche, but it's always worked. Think back to Hurricane from Serbia. It's like they like that kind of music, and then maybe Australia becomes a bit too much, on one hand, childish because of all the graphics. It's just a lot happening in 3 minutes, and him costume changing and you know, being around on stage. I think it might have gotten 11th. I think that, but we'll see when the results come. But yeah, I think it just might have been a little bit off-putting to some of the more conservative viewers of Eurovision.
Yeah, I love these discussions because, like, you know, we're going to so deconstruct this, right? And we're going to kind of, like, assign theories to it. But I think, let's get to the bare bones. We also need a good song. And, you know, and I think that, you know, quite often we approach the visualization. I love it. I love visuals. I love optics. But I think that also, it just wasn't, you know, that was the elevating point, right? That was the point to then lift it up with visuals. And yes, he looks great and all of that, but ultimately as well, like which non-Eurovision fan is gonna vote for Milkshake Man? You know, it's not, yeah, who's the audience as well? Interestingly as well, doesn't he then blend an older female, put her in the blender? I mean, so that has an ageist undertone. I don't know. I mean, I think he looks great, and I think he's a seasoned performer. I didn't think he was sexually aggressive. I thought he looked good, because you can't be sexually aggressive in a tank top, and, you know, like, he wasn't wearing anything which was uber masculine in a way. You know, I think he was showing off his guns, but he wasn't threatening, I didn't find. But the song also needs to be giving. You know, that's my issue.
So this was an infomercial. Who in the audience would have bought that blender?
1, 2,
3, 4, 5,
It's
6.
a Nutra Ninja. How about that?
And I'm going for the Vitamix. So it was a fun song. It's camp. I couldn't help but sing and dance along with it. Now, I don't remember who asked the question about him showing his genitals through his pants. But do you think that was on purpose?
Yes. You don't choose that outfit if you don't want to reveal what lies beneath.
Okay. Maybe it was on purpose. I wasn't. It was noticeable, but I was personally not offended by it. And I think that to say that it's offensive from a man versus a woman is just kind of wrong.
Thank you so much. Thoughts on Australia in the audience, front row.
I want to be put in that blender and come out like that woman did.
You want to be put in that blender?
40 years off my age sounds pretty damn good to me.
You look fabulous. You don't need the blender. Other thoughts on Australia? Oh wow, okay. Hands up. Doesn't have to be Australia, but it can be anything. Hat and bun.
No, I have another question.
Amazing.
Okay, so in the past when I look at the bookmakers' choices, I was like, I tried to avoid it because it's a done deal for me even before the first semifinal. So, and then when I didn't like a song and then I looked at the charts or the bookmakers' choice and it's like ranked 1 or 2, I changed my mind because I want to jump into the massive bandwagon. So my question is, how much do bookmakers' choice would influence your own expertise choice?
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think that all of us have very strong individual taste. Oftentimes the bookmakers kind of do dovetail, but I think, for instance, Claude. I've had Claude as my 1, 2, or 3 from the very beginning, and he hasn't always been 1, 2, or 3 in the odds. I know that you similarly, like you've had Malta very high, and that's very low in the odds. So I think that in a general perspective, it does influence the media and news cycle. So like, in the UK, for instance, the BBC will only write about their act, and then they'll write about someone with controversy, and then they'll write about bookies' favorites. And so, because media outlets in various countries do the exact same thing, you start to hear about the favorites more. That's why it's so important to be doing well with the bookies so you get attention. And I do think that mass media, if you're constantly bombarded by these are the favorites, you should like this, I think that can make a difference. However, we have seen surprises in the past where people defy the bookmakers because on the night anything can happen. And then the heart overrides the head. So yeah, on the night, you just don't know what's going to happen. Debit, Simon.
So I don't gamble, so I really don't care for it. I mean, because I'm in the Eurovision space and a lot of my life is taken up by having Eurovision discussions, I do get to know it, but it's through word of mouth, and it's it's a moving goalpost, because sometimes you hear that, I heard Belgium Red Sebastian was 5th to win Eurovision. So, you kind of have that part in the back of your head, and then suddenly he doesn't even qualify. So I never really look at it. And in leading up to Eurovision, it's interesting because you do have bookmakers who've predicted Eurovision 2026 and who's going to win it. It's like, how do you even get to that point? Like, how do you get there? But leading up to Eurovision, because we do, well, certainly I do a lot of first reaction videos, so that's kind of information. You start to unfriend people because, you have to be sort of siloed and not taking any of that information.
We should clarify, our first reactions are first reactions.
Oh God, yeah. Does anybody doubt that?
Yes.
Oh right, no. They are first reactions. If anything changes, is when William goes, what you said about act, blah blah blah. Sorry, but we just can't publish that. but the reaction is real. The reactions are real, but sometimes in the editing, maybe, I've labored on the point as like, okay, we're just gonna cut that. But the reactions are, and they have to be. And I think people see through it actually when it's not real. Like people see through it. But bookmakers. So do you tap into that? Is that what you said? You tap into, and it influences you. That's interesting.
Do you gamble?
No, I don't. I don't even know who these people are. So I was thinking it's sort of a mafia, but like controlling the results. But
they do have good connections and sometimes get leaks of things, because sometimes they are remarkably accurate. Like you'll notice that the odds often will shift after the semifinals, and that's because they've somehow gotten the results of the semifinals, which aren't published until afterwards. You can go back historically and see that their movements after the semifinals are often very accurate.
I mean, first of all, let's talk about where does these bookmakers' odds come from? They come from people gambling on it. So, and why do people gamble on a song? Because they get information about that song. We get less and less information because first rehearsals we're shunned off, second rehearsals now we're also shunned off. So what are bookmakers going for, or rather what are people betting going for? They're going on previous information. Sweden was the favorite to win Eurovision this whole season, but that was because they were 30th and last Melodifestivalen when those songs were revealed back in November. So they predicted that it was because Måns Zelmerlöw would win Melodifestivalen and then go on to win Eurovision. But then Kai won. What happened? Sweden was still #1 in the odds. So it's based on something that's like previous history, track record, all of that. And for me this year seemed like that Kai hasn't been really challenged. That's the thing. I don't think another song has burst onto the scene and just been like, there we have it. There we have the challenger for this victory. So, and we saw it with Malta in 2021. Suddenly Destiny was #1 in the odds. Why was that? Well, it turned out that a lot of people in Malta, who is a very big country in terms of betting, bet on that. So, it's difficult because it's a vicious circle. Bookmakers will get their odds from people betting on it. They will get it from information that is less and less and scattered. So, do we believe it? I guess we have to, because it turns out that most of the time it's right, but we just see these outliers that are like, where did that come from? I mean, Nemo was #1 in the odds during a period last year. Then Nemo fell off, and then Croatia. And then when Israel after semi-final 2 last year, that result from Italy just was out there for no particular reason other than, I don't know, an Italian producer not doing their job. Suddenly, boom, number 2. So it's very, very little things that make people bet on songs based on, whoop, one thing there, whoosh, it goes into the odds. But this year, I feel like we could see a potential upset, but I still haven't seen a song yet that I feel massively will challenge Sweden's overall victory.
I just want to flash back to Eurovision 2016, which Jamala ultimately won. Until the first rehearsal, she was not a favorite. She was down like 16 or 17.
Exactly.
Then we saw the tree moment at rehearsals, that beautiful tree moment, and suddenly she shot up, and as the week went on, it narrowed and narrowed and narrowed.
Fuego in 2018.
Fuego, this is perhaps the best example. Completely off everyone's radar. They deliberately chose not to go to the pre-parties, to keep the hype secret, and to make it rise when it mattered. And also just historical precedent per your point. In a year like this, where it is a bit wide open, where many things could happen, I feel like the bookies default to security. They're like, okay, Sweden often wins, they often do well, just make them the favorite. However, there is the hype to back it up now, certainly.
What about that French opera singer that was the
Amaury Vasily, France 2011.
To win it, and it was just like, how? And then didn't, right?
Eurovision 2011 had like 12 favorites. France, Ireland, UK,
Sweden.
At one point Dana International from Israel, Sweden, who did finished third in the end. Gosh, that was high drama. All right, look, I want to go around now, actually, because we're coming to the end of our time here. And could you each just share a memory, your favorite moment from this experience, competitive, offstage, onstage? I'll go first. Mine happened right here in this seat when Tommy Cash from Estonia came to the House of Helvetia. And y'all, I'm not gonna lie, we were nervous. Because when you read social media, you get one sense of a person, right? And on Euro Twitter, there were all these comments like, oh my goodness, it's gonna be difficult. We were bracing ourselves. He was on a tight schedule, he had to be somewhere. Like, it was very tight. And then we're doing the Q&A. Bernardo goes, 10 minutes are up. And then I say, well, Tommy, final question. And he says, no, I like it here. I like being with the people. I like the energy. The EBU has taken away the press conferences, and so we just speak into a TikTok. But here, I get the energy of my fans. I feel the love from the people. And he stayed for much longer than he should have. And then he opened his grocery bag and said, I have a gift for you. And it was a squashed banana. And I didn't eat it because it was nasty, but it was just the gesture. He came, he saw, he was warm. He's a lovely person, and you just have to remember, the internet is one thing, and the perception you have of people is often so wrong. And then you meet them, and they're just lovely. Suzanne.
Well, I have lots of favorite moments. One of them was actually hearing Beatrice share the story of the legend of Rosalfa and the castle.
I'm going to go with the boring one per you and say Sissal is my highlight of this year. Not because she's in the final, I am thrilled about that, but Sissal took it on by herself to make this Eurovision season about bonding between the artists. She made that infamous group chat on Instagram, inviting everyone, has been a force in driving people together this year, and everyone that I've talked to, both during pre-season and here in Basel, has been like, Sissal has been so contributing to make all of this such a good experience, and I mean the friendships that have evolved through all of this. So if anything, we need artists in Eurovision to embrace all of this. They have been embracing us. And this year's artist bunch just seemed like such a nice and genuine field of artists. So for me, the biggest experience this year is the artists' way of being in Eurovision, not being competitive, not being like against each other or forming small groups, but being, cliche, united by music. Oh God, did I say that out loud? I actually did. But united by the spirit that is Eurovision, and that sometimes someone outside of us try to push away from us, but the fans here in Helvetia and all around the pre-parties and here in Basel have been contributing to making this a very, very memorable Eurovision.
Yeah, so many memories actually. I'm going to be succinct. So I have been I have not attended the last 2 editions of Eurovision. So being in Basel, actually, I wasn't expected to be here, and I'm here, and I'm really happy about it. But what I really like is just the new, cementing old connections, but making new ones. So I had a couple of, I was at the Euro Fan Cafe by the entrance, and the plan was, I was with Erika, and the plan was just to pop in and just see it. I don't know how can we be here and not see it. And then I met Conte, and ended up spending 2 hours doing really fun things, and it just takes me back to all the friendships that I formed at Eurovision. And through Eurovision, I mean, William and I are close again because of Eurovision, Suzanne, Simon, the list goes on. And you know, I look at my address book, well, actually no, that ages me. My phone. And it's really great. And you know, making friends on the tram stop when you're going for something to eat, and then someone's coming to talk to you, and we don't always agree. In fact, quite often we don't. But it's that connecting thread, right? It's that colour that runs through it all. And united by music, I'm going to go for Open Up, because that's my slogan. Haven't opened up this year. No, joke. But I love that. And I love meeting everyone who's connected with Euro. I just feel like it's part of my, everyone's part of my extended family, and lots of great friendships that come through my love for music.
That was beautiful. Thank you to all of you. Thank you so much. You guys, as we repeatedly plug throughout this chat, you can watch most of the interviews we had here on the stage with the artists on the Movie Blogs YouTube channel. There were some very emotional chats, I think of Czechia, Denmark, and Malta in particular as being very high on the motion. There were tears, there was drama, but there was love. And we just want to thank all of you for coming. If you would like to snap a photo with each other, with any of us, we're all going to be over at the photo board. Y'all take that photo. It looks real good. It looks real good on Instagram. And thank you all for coming. DJ, music please.